knew she had been in Japan for 5 days, with 4 more to go. She had called me once the day before, and today I was certain she wouldn't be home, not for a few more days at least. Yet I clearly heard her voice, distinct and clear, coming from the living room. It took me a few seconds to realize I was still a bit groggy. Then I understood something was wrong. I got up hurriedly, my feet trembling, slowly making my way toward my bedroom door. I could hear my mom's voice through the small gap under the door. She was speaking quickly, faster than usual. I strained to listen to be sure I wasn't dreaming. It was her voice, but she was speaking in a language I didn't understand. I couldn't move. I didn't know if it was a dream or if I was losing my mind. I stayed there in the darkness of my room, listening. She spoke in this strange dialect, with something off about her pacing faster and faster, almost like she was trying to set a speed record. I decided to go see. I opened my door just a crack and peered into the hallway, then pulled back to avoid being noticed. At the end, I saw my mom. She was sitting on the couch in the soft morning light, staring blankly into space. Her hair was messy, as if she hadn't slept in 2 days. But what struck me was that she was there, the phone pressed to her ear, eyes glazed over and expressionless, speaking in a language I didn't know. I didn't dare make a sound. I didn't even know if she could see me. I stayed frozen, watching this surreal scene. She didn't seem to hear me. She kept talking rapidly, and the words coming out of her mouth didn't resemble a normal conversation. It was like she was reciting something at lightning speed, but in an unknown language. I froze. I didn't understand. I thought of everything but that. I wanted to talk to her, but I couldn't move. I slowly backed away from the door and closed it behind me. I listened. She didn't stop. The minutes passed, but it felt like hours. The words kept pouring out faster than ever, like she was trying to outpace Eminem. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't think. Every passing minute made me feel worse, but I couldn't do anything but lie there paralyzed. Then, after about 10 minutes of keeping up the pace, she suddenly stopped. No noise, nothing. It was even stranger. I stayed there, almost holding my breath. I thought everything would return to normal, but no. Then suddenly she started again, but this time it wasn't words. She was screaming. It wasn't sentences anymore, just sounds. Screams like she was pleading. Screams like I'd never heard before. It sent chills down my spine. She kept screaming louder and louder, as if she were in some uncontrollable panic. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I was stuck, paralyzed, caught between fear and confusion. I couldn't even breathe normally, as if the air in the house had become heavier. Then suddenly silence. Nothing. The phone stopped ringing. The door opened slowly, as if it had unlocked by itself. I moved closer, remaining frozen in the darkness, half hidden in the shadow of the hallway, watching the room. She was there on the couch, motionless, eyes fixed in space. The phone was still in her hands, but she wasn't speaking anymore. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. It was just terrifying. There was tension in the air, as if the rest of the world had disappeared around me. The door slammed shut by itself, the loud noise pulling me out of my daze. I didn't move. I stayed there in the dim light, frozen. my eyes glued to the small space under the door where the only light came from. After what seemed like an eternity in that heavy silence, I heard her again. But this time she was laughing, a very sudden loud laugh, as if she had burst out laughing in the middle of a conversation, a rapid, almost compulsive laugh, but it wasn't joyful, it wasn't sincere, it was quick, as if she was forced to do it, a laugh that decomposed with every passing second. I didn't understand immediately. I didn't want to understand. I lowered my head, hiding in the darkness, hoping the noise would stop, hoping everything would return to normal, and then it became silent again, no more noise. I didn't dare leave my room, not yet. I was paralyzed, unable to move. The silence was oppressive, heavy like a blanket too thick. The minutes seemed to stretch endlessly. I had no idea how long it had lasted, but it felt like an eternity. I didn't hear anything anymore, nothing at all. Then, after what felt like half an hour, my phone vibrated. I grabbed the device, my hands shaking. The message was from my mom. The photo appeared first. She was smiling in front of the Sensoli temple, just like she always did, joyful, radiant, as if nothing had happened. Nothing could have seemed more normal than this image, but the caption froze me. Sending kisses from Japan, thinking of you a lot. I stared at the photo for a few more seconds, my eyes fixed on it, as if I were looking for a detail that wasn't there, but there was nothing strange, nothing that would reassure me. I didn't know what to do. I felt a lump in my throat. All of this seemed impossible. Deep down, I just hoped I'd wake up and realize it had all been a horrible, far too realistic dream, but no. How then could I have seen my mom in the living room barely an hour ago? I stayed there motionless, staring at the screen of my phone, unable to make a move. The photo was there, but in my head everything felt off, as if somehow everything I had experienced in the last few minutes was just an illusion. I stayed frozen in my room for minutes, maybe hours, not knowing what to do. I didn't respond. I didn't say anything. I just let the fear settle in, unable to remove it, and I still have no explanation. I don't know how long I have. My battery's at 14%, and I don't dare start the van. If I do, they'll hear me. I know that sounds paranoid, but you didn't see them. Or maybe you have. If you have, tell me. I need to know how to get out of here, okay? I travel alone. I document it. My channel isn't big yet, maybe 12,000 subscribers, but I post regularly off-grid campsites, van conversions, solo travel tips, that kind of thing. I stay out of cities, and I stay off well-worn paths. The further I am from people, the safer I feel. Or I guess I should be saying, the safer I used to feel. Tonight, I parked off a forest road in Idaho, miles from the nearest town. It's the kind of place where, if you screamed, no one would hear you. That's one of my go-to videos. By the way, a big scream loud as I can, and then just the silence afterward. Basically, the place was perfect until the knock came. A single soft knock, not on the door, on the window. I froze. It was just after 1 a.m. The woods were silent, no wind, no animal noises. My van is unmarked. I never advertise I'm a woman traveling alone. and I always wait and post my videos a week after I leave the spot, just to make sure no one catches on to where I'm parked. So how did someone find me, let alone creep up without setting off the motion lights? Another knock, light, insistent. There was no way this could be anything good, right? My heart was racing, my stomach already twisted into knots, muscles pulled tight. I reached for my phone, my stupid fingers fumbled it, and it hit the floor mat. The thump seemed thunder loud, and when I sat back up, I nearly screamed. A child's face was pressed against the window, pale skin, dark hair, wide staring eyes. But something was wrong. The glass reflected weird, but there was no shine in the kid's pupils. Just black. Completely black. I choked on my breath. Every instinct in me screamed wrong, wrong, wrong. Why was there a child out here? I was so far away from any of the main roads. It wasn't the kind of place children would be. The kid didn't move, didn't blink. Then another knock. My head snapped toward the sounds, and my stomach dropped. There was a second one, a little girl this time, standing by my back doors. Same dark hair, same vacant black stare. I don't scare easy. I've slept in parking lots where guys tried breaking into my van. I've camped in places where the only sounds were coyotes circling. I'm not an adrenaline junkie, but I'm also not just starting out. But this was something else. I kept my hand low, fumbling for my knife while trying to keep my breathing steady. That sounds bad. These were just kids, right? But you don't understand. There was something wrong with them. The boy at the window finally spoke. "Let us in." 3 words, no emotion, no inflection. Just a flat, empty demand. I shook my head. It made all my hair stand on end. He spoke again, more persistent this time. "Let us in." The girl knocked again, harder. I heard it rattle the doors. It was a childish response, but I grabbed my blanket and pulled it up over my shoulders, cowering beneath the heavy cotton like it was a shield. I clutched my knife so tightly, it made my knuckles ache. I don't know how long I sat there, too afraid to breathe. I knew that if I opened the door, I wouldn't be able to close it again. Suddenly, they stepped back. The dark of night engulfed the windows again. I barely had time to process that relief before a new sound nearly made me scream. A tap on the driver's side. I whipped around. There was a third child, a new one. This kid was a little taller. He was maybe 12 at the oldest, standing inches from my driver's side door. Unlike the other 2, he was grinning. The handle jerked, but I kept my doors closed, so it didn't open. The grin widened. "Let us in." The same 3 words again. It wasn't a question. It was a demand. I don't remember grabbing my keys, but suddenly they were in my hand. I flipped the ignition. The dashboard lit up. My heart slammed. If I had to, I'd run them over, but the engine didn't start. I turned the key again. Nothing. The battery was fine. The gas was full. It had started just fine this afternoon. But right now the van wasn't starting. And the kids, they were still standing there, staring, smiling. I reached for my phone, fingers shaking, no service. Then the tapping started again. Every window, every door, a slow, measured rhythm. I must have blacked out at some point, because the next thing I knew, the van was filled with light, sunlight. I woke up still clutching my knife. My doors were locked. My keys were still in the ignition. My phone was in my lap, battery at 23%. I risked a glance outside, but there was no sign of the kids. I opened the driver's side door, heart hammering. The air smelled like damp earth, pine, a beautiful misty morning. My tires were untouched. There were no footprints in the loamy soil. It was like they'd never been there at all. But they were. I know they were. And I know they're still out there too, because my van still won't start. And I'm worried that tonight, the knock will come again. He was beautiful, his profile was clever, plus he baked cupcakes in his free time. We matched. I broke the ice. He was quick to ask me on a date. Paint and sip. Very nice. After a frenzied afternoon of shaving, exfoliating, and spraying, I arrived a cool 4 minutes late. The moment I saw him, I took a mental snapshot just in case this was it. An unfortunate habit, stuck firmly in place since 7th grade. His features were elegant and refined. His stature long and markedly lean. The type of person who attracted the eye effortlessly. He was lively and curious, and his nose wrinkled when he laughed, my favorite. With paint smeared and wine guzzled, our masterpieces were complete. It was a brisk, drizzly evening. We bumped against each other every few steps and took turns critiquing each painting, affecting a snobby high-pro sensibility. His shoulder felt solid despite his wiry appearance. He must work out, I thought. We kissed against a wrought iron fence, bathed in the amber glow of an old street lamp, his tongue gentle and sweet against mine. He pulled away for a moment, cupping my face affectionately. "You taste so good." He leaned back in, pressing more passionately than before. His tongue ventured deeper and deeper into my mouth, probing, exploring. Before I knew it, it stroked my uvula. My stomach heaved, and a surge of bile rose in my throat. I instinctively tried to push him away, out of the splash zone, but he was dense and did not budge. My nausea was quickly replaced with sheer embarrassment. He apologized endlessly and admitted that he had not done this in a very long time. The abashed flush only made his face more handsome. I mentally placed our paintings side by side, above the tasteful couch we were certain to share in a year, maybe 2. But even perfect evenings must end. "I'll call you an Uber," he declared. "How chivalrous of you, thank you. But there's no need, I live like 3 blocks that way." "No way, what cross street?" 87th and Amsterdam. "You're kidding, I live right there," he nearly shouted. We giggled like children as we continued along, referencing 2-hour-old inside jokes. Soon my building towered over us, the burgundy brick etched in stark film noir shadows. His jaw hung agape. "No, this is a prank. Where are the cameras? This is my building." "That's insane," I cried. How did I not realize? A key turn later, we were stomping up the dank, spongy stairs. 1, 2, 3 flights, up, up, up. With each floor, we grew giddier, more incredulous. I saw my door then, a familiar seasick green, paint chipped at the corners to reveal the previous crimson varnish underneath. A shabby 9A, hung slightly askew. He approached it like an old friend. Well, this is me. I stopped dead, my hackles only now raising. Too little too late. This one, 9A? He paused, calculating, then abruptly bellowed, "Yes, ma'am, home sweet home." He slapped the door sharply. The artful curve of his face twisted very slightly. Something strained and eager was there, right below the surface. "Can I come in? I'm curious if it has the same layout as mine." I tested, wondering how far he'd take this. He blushed and shifted his weight, the perfect performance of chaste sincerity. "I'm flattered, but I really like you. I'd like to take things slow if that's okay with you." He smiled neatly, but his eyes remained wide, unblinking. There we stayed for an uncomfortably long moment. I wasn't sure where to go from here. "I understand. Thank you for a wonderful evening." I presented my hand for a friendly shake, chest puffed out with counterfeit confidence. Behind my ribcage, my heart galloped wildly. He must have heard it too. His spindly fingers laced through mine, the skin cool and waxy. How did I not notice that before? "You'll see me again, sooner than you think, neighbor." His strained cheeriness made my stomach churn. I left him there outside the door to my own home and continued up the stairs, fighting the urge to sprint away. Where else could I go but the roof? The night air stung my adrenaline-soaked skin. I flew to the crumbling edge and peered at the dizzying sidewalk below. The minutes slid slowly by, but finally the front door squealed open. 1, 2, 3 crisp footsteps, and there he was, so many flights below me. He looked small, all the way down there. He remained perfectly still. What was he doing? I thought of those big cats in Nat Geo documentaries, infinitely patient, ever ravenous. My pulse roared in my ears. I did not make a sound, I swear, and yet that lovely head swiveled 180 degrees, his wide-eyed gaze immediately locating me. There we remained, torturously frozen in time. In a split second, he spun on his heels and threw himself at the brick facade with inhuman speed. I swear to you, he scuttled up the side of the building, sinewy limbs flailing violently. My legs took over and dragged me from that spot by force. I burst back inside in record time, but his footsteps already scrambled onto the roof behind me. God, he was fast. I wouldn't make it. I threw myself at the mercy of gravity, hoping those trusty stairs would be there to support me. Sure enough, they came one after the other. In a moment, I was at my door, but those infernal footfalls careened closer and closer with punishing speed. My numb fingers fumbled with the keys. Why did I have so many goddamn keys? Slick with sweat, I managed to shakily insert the correct one, turning it hurriedly. The door rasped ajar, pleading for me to come in quick. 1 foot to safety, I swiveled on my axis. Mere inches behind, he rocketed toward me, joints hinged, far past their breaking point, torso flung back in a grotesque arc, so deep that his exquisite skull dragged behind him, slamming mercilessly against each step. With an appalling thud, thud, thud. At the threshold, he, or more accurately it, lurched forward like an awful marionette puppet. That refined jaw split open, revealing a fleshy throat with rows of gleaming teeth spiraling into its depths. Just in time, I flung the door shut and threw my weight against it, bracing for an impact that never came. Silence. Then my phone buzzed, one new message. Look behind you. My breath caught in my throat, though every cell in my body begged me not to. I turned my fearful gaze. There, through the living room window, hardly discernible in the inky darkness, the awful thing's eyes bulged. An endless abyss of pitch black, its taut skin pulled back to reveal a dripping, toothy grin. Then, a camera flash. I blinked away stars, fighting to see around the blind spot in my vision. I squinted through the murky glass, searching for that dreadful face, but it was gone. I haven't left my apartment all day. I don't know if I ever will again. The daylight offers some comfort, but with each passing minute, the sun creeps closer to the horizon. I'll update you all tomorrow, if I make it. If not, I hope this post helps someone out there. And please, for the love of God, delete Hinge. I got home from the hospital yesterday. It's been an awful few days, to say the least. I won't tiptoe around this detail, though. It's not something I'm proud of. I'm an addict, and have been for a long time. This isn't the type of PSA you're thinking of. Please bear with me, don't get me wrong. Drug addiction will ruin your life, only to swiftly end it. I've seen it tens of times before, but that's the least of my worries right now. Everyone has their own way to escape their life. For some, it's something as innocent as a TV show or a book. Others turn to pleasure like sex or food. Relatively early on in my life, I turned to opioids. I had an injury in high school and got some prescription painkillers. That was the start of it for me. It really does feel like a spider's web. It's so easy to wander further down that road, lost in the pleasure and carefree, but leaving again is almost impossible. At least that's how I feel about it. 2 nights ago, I was spending my time escaping. By that, I mean I was in my dark, run-down apartment, sitting on my couch as the TV flickering its light onto me with a band around my bicep and a needle in my forearm. There are many types of opioids. My particular weakness, as I'm sure you can gather, was heroin. I'm not picky about how I take it, snorting, smoking, injecting. As long as I get my high, I don't care. But injecting it is instant. As soon as I pressed down on that syringe, my troubles left me. The best word I can use for it is euphoria. My achy body doesn't hurt anymore. I'm not sad, lonely, or scared anymore. I just feel calm and good. I sink into my couch, exhaling all of my worries. It's sad to say that moments like these were the happiest I had in a long time. After drowning in bliss for a while, my vision started to blur. My breath went in and out more and more slowly. My body felt heavy like a bag of sand. The TV sounded so distant, like I was hearing it underwater. For just a second, I realized what was happening, and I remember being scared, but it was too late to fight it by then. I died that night, laying there on the couch, in my filthy clothes. It was fast and slow all at the same time. I felt my life slipping away, being pulled away like water draining from a bathtub. Thinking about it now, I'm so ashamed. What a truly pathetic end that would have been. I'll skip ahead to answer the question I'm sure you're thinking. I wasn't dead for very long. By some miracle, my best friend had come to check on me. He found me near death and called an ambulance, but there was an eternity between these events. I never really put much thought into an afterlife. Why would I? For most of my life, being high was my god. That was the purpose I served and chased after. Sure, I had heard about heaven and hell, but not only did I not really believe in them, I didn't bother to consider them in my daily life. Those thoughts were as far from my mind as they could have ever been, but from what I very recently learned about most interpretations of an afterlife, I think were wrong. At least the hell I experienced didn't fit the descriptions I've read since I woke up. My soul didn't go to any fiery pits of wailing and weeping, nor cloudy, beautiful skies adorned with angels and harps. In fact, it didn't go anywhere at all. I think that's the scariest part to me. I was dead slumped on that filthy couch, and I would have rotted there. But I didn't go anywhere. I was stuck in my own body, a prisoner in a cell of my own meat and bone. I could still feel through my cold skin, see through my glassy eyes, hear the TV chattering across from me. But I couldn't move. I was stuck looking at my ceiling. Noise was still slow, as if the movie was running at less than half speed. My lungs still burned for air, and my eyes screamed for me to blink, but I couldn't. I tried to think of a way out of this. Maybe I could will my body to work again. Maybe I could force my lungs to breathe and my heart to beat. But my body wasn't my own anymore. It felt like I was trying to push down a house while numb on, fully awake, fully aware, but locked inside a body that refused to obey. After what felt like years of struggling, I gave up. This allowed for panic to fill me. I was dead. They were going to bury me, or worse, cremate me. I thought I would be doomed to exist as a soul within a corpse forever, hidden away in the earth and forgotten. I tried to turn my attention away from my pain and fear. I tried to think of my family, my parents, and siblings. I would never speak to them again. I wanted to sob, but my body remained a useless pile of flesh. I spent an eternity there on that couch. I went through every thought I could ever think, every regret I had replayed endlessly. I cursed myself for wasting my life. I lamented my horrible fate. I dreaded that there was no escape. The concept of eternity crushed me with more weight than the bottom of the sea. Death was no sweet release. It was an unending nightmare. My mind had time to shatter, to splinter into 1,000 pieces, and then put itself back together again. Finally, my friend found me. I watched him through unblinking eyes as he shook me, called my name, and begged me to wake up. I knew I wouldn't wake. I watched him call the police, and another eternity later, I watched them try to revive me. They used Narcan to bring me back. Time sped up, life crashed back into me like a tidal wave. I sat upright and gasped for air. I blinked until my eyelids hurt. I sobbed, cried, and screamed in terror and relief. I begged them not to let me die again, not to let me be trapped. They carted me away to the hospital, trying their best to calm me and stop my nonsensical begging. The doctors tell me I wasn't officially dead, at least not at first. The state I was in before my friend found me is what's known as temporary death. Breathing stops and your body begins to shut down. All in all, I was clinically dead for just over 3 minutes. That's how much time passed in between my death and my revival. 3 minutes felt like countless lifetimes. I know one day I will die permanently. Nothing in this frightens me more than death, than an eternity of imprisonment within myself. I will do everything in my power to never experience that again. I've decided to join a church. I'm going to sell everything I have and dedicate myself to God. I have no idea what else I can do. Still, the idea of eternity terrifies me. The concept that I could experience this for millions of years and I'd still be no closer to freedom than I was before, it's scarier to me than anything. I can't help but think of a book I read in high school, The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. It's about the afterlife. In it, hell has a gate with an inscription that reads, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." I've learned firsthand why. If this was hell, there is indeed no hope to be had. Maybe what I went through was hell. Whether or not it was my own personalized hell or not, I don't know. That thought sickens me most of all. Does all of humanity share what I saw? Is every grave filled with a soul? Is every mausoleum a prison for some damned person, locked in their own corpse? I don't want to consider it. The implication that our world is filled with the living dead, tormented people who have spent countless years suffocating without release or peace, and will spend infinitely more. It's too much for me. I'm never touching heroin again, or any drug. I will hold on to this life. I have for as long as I can. And when I do go, all I can do is hope God will save me from my flesh. How long does grieving last? I asked myself every single day for almost 3 years since my wife disappeared, and I never got an answer. The reminder that I was alone came every time I woke up and went to bed. Eventually, the reality sets in, and I start to get used to eating alone, brushing my teeth alone, grocery shopping alone, and just being alone. I thought enough time had passed that I didn't have to ask myself that question anymore, until the day I got a phone call from the nursing team who took care of my mother-in-law, Denise. The old lady was planning on moving herself into a nearby nursing home, but now it sounds like she had too passed. When I arrived at their home, I was met by one of the nurses who had taken care of Denise. She tried to leave quickly, not wanting to stay around the house long. We had a small conversation about where everything was in the home, and how most of the things inside were packed up and ready for storage, and then were given a set of keys for the house, each labeled with the rooms inside. I tried to ask for more details, but all the nurse gave me was a passing chuckle as she turned to go to her car, getting inside and driving away without another word. It was a reasonable response when it involved anything that had to do with Denise. The old lady was going on 80 and was unbearable to be around. The last time I had spoken to her, most of our conversation was loud coughing and nonsense. The old house smelled like a hospital. Cardboard boxes were stacked randomly around the home, with a thin layer of dust blanketing each surface. The TV and larger furniture stayed unpacked, only covered in a layer of plastic wrap. I was married to my wife for 5 years before she vanished, and I don't recall ever being in her childhood home. The old house sat in a suburban row of homes, all facing away from the tree line, leading into the dense woods of the Pacific Northwest. I stuffed the keys into my pockets and carefully squeezed between the stacked boxes. Small framed pictures of my wife at various ages still hung along the walls and sat across the small coffee table. I guess Denise wanted to take these in her bag, or maybe, like me, it was difficult to let her go. With no one left in the family, the responsibility fell on me to take care of what was left of their belongings. I figured I would get the boxes to storage and clean the rest of the house before deciding what to do with it. I loaded a couple into my car, staring at the dishes and kitchenware before stumbling on a pile of boxes with her name written across them, Gwen. I read to the silent house with a long, deep breath. I carried the boxes to the coffee table and opened them. Inside were articles of clothing, old bound notebooks, photo albums, and school memorabilia. I flipped through them, and seeing her on every page brought tears. Her smile lit up each sun-faded page, and each wood frame she was captured in threatened to set on fire with her warmth. These boxes were going to stay with me. I dried my tears and kept going, wanting to see more of her. I moved away a pile of old clothes and notebooks when my hand met something hard and hollow. Buried at the bottom of one of the boxes were a hefty bag of small CDs and a handheld video camera. I pulled them out and immediately went to turn it on. Unsurprisingly, the old thing wouldn't turn on, and the battery compartment was corroded shut with the old batteries still inside. I wrestled with it in the kitchen with a butter knife and got it opened and cleaned, then with the double A's from the TV remote, got the thing to switch on. I inspected the camera again, excited to get it working, and saw it had a name written in marker on the side, Gwen. I shuffled through the CDs, each labeled with a date, a few not. The first was for her 8th birthday. The small red-haired girl's face was right up in the camera lens, peering in with her bright steel blue eyes. She let out an excited squeal and ran to hug her parents, thanking her mom and dad for the expensive gift. I guess filmmaking had always been her passion. Her father responded with something unintelligible and a heavy cough before he left the frame. I had never met the man when he was alive, and she never talked much about him. A moment later, he returned with a big birthday cake, and then the three ate it together. The rest of the CD was just them eating before shutting off randomly. The old CDs didn't have that much storage, each having only about 20 minutes of memory. I spent the next few hours going through her childhood. Several moments in the videos I recall her telling me about. Late nights when we would lay in bed and talk until sunrise. Other moments just small silly things a child with a video camera would film. Her father eventually showed up less and less in the videos, his cough worsening every time until he was no longer in them. For a long while, the videos stopped, a large year-long gap before I saw her face again. Her smiles were never the same, she talked less, and some videos were just her talking about her day to her father and writing silently in her notebooks. Eventually, the pile of memories grew smaller and smaller, and when I almost reached the end of the dated discs, I decided to take a look at one without any date on it. Heavy breathing interlaced with the crackle of the built-in microphone blasted through the tiny speakers, filling up the empty home more than everything else that night. The screen was dark with only a small light coming from the left corner of the video. The lens stuttered and focused. Eventually, I was able to make out a line of trees and a street light, but the image was still blurred. It stayed focused on the dark woods for another moment before the camera was pushed forward, hitting a glass surface before it struggled to focus once again. The heavy breathing of my wife still close to the microphone. I leaned in as if it would help the video focus, the blurry tree line being barely visible in the dark. Between the breaths of my wife, I could hear the camera force itself to focus. sharpening itself until the woods got steadily more and more visible. The camera stayed like that for 18 minutes, glued in position, and so did my wife. My eyes stayed trained on the trees, just like she was in the video, watching for any movement at all, only leaving the tree line to check the timer on the video. It got to 19 minutes, and then as it slowly reached its end, something shifted in the trees. The video ended, blinding me with the harsh blue menu of the settings screen. Immediately, I replaced the disc with another unmarked one. The next one was during the day. She stood just at the edge of the woods, camera raised and pointed towards the thick darkness created by the trees. The normally tranquil sounds of birds and nature in the background were sometimes interrupted by a heavy cough. Each time the camera fell for a moment, I imagined she tried to stifle her cough. I watched again to the end of this video, all 20 minutes of just the camera pointed into the woods, but nothing happened. The following 4 undated videos also showed nothing, just my wife at various points and locations around her house, filming the woods for 20 minutes. The audio was always just background noise, coughing, and the mechanical whirl of the camera's focus. On the last dated one, I could see her reflection in the window as she filmed. She sat in the kitchen, the camera pointed towards the window above her sink, and the tree line beyond her yard. She was probably about 15 or 16 at this point, looking just like the first time we had met in high school. The camera tried to focus again on the woods, zooming between her reflection and the tree line. She let out another cough, this time just a brief one, and then opened a bottle of pills, swallowing them dry before letting the camera roll to its end. I had run out of CDs. I stood from my spot on the ground and turned towards the kitchen window. It was now nighttime, making the darkness of the tree line even more oppressing than it was a few moments earlier on the screen. I stood and stared for a moment like she did, trying to scan the dark with my eyes, but the trees stayed the same. With a shudder, I pulled the blinds down to shut the window and made my way back with the help of my phone light. There were no more videos. I carelessly dumped out the rest of the boxes with her name on them across the floor and found nothing. Realizing what I'd done to what I had left of my wife, I started to mournfully repack her items neatly in the boxes when I accidentally kicked something across the ground. Her notebooks. I picked them up and laid them across the coffee table. There were only 3 of them, one of them a locked toy Barbie notebook that I wasn't going to get open unless I smashed the thing, and the other 2 old leather-bound style books. I carefully unwrapped the straps around them and flipped through the weathered pages, mostly filled with bits of writing and drawings. Across the 2 available notebooks, her art style visibly improved and she wrote less and less. Like the videos, the drawings were about her and her parents. Unfortunately, they were almost exactly like the videos, chronicling and recording how ill her father eventually got, more and more ill. The drawings and entries transitioned from them getting ice cream, hiking, and summer barbecues to hospital visits, sitting on their back porch and looking into the woods. Then it was just the woods. The second half of her 3rd notebook was just pages and pages of the trees, and nothing more until the last 2 pages. The graphite of the pencil was aggressively forced into the paper, splaying out an image of the tree line into the last 2 pages of her notebook. I ran my fingers along each tree and could feel them etched into the page. The black powder left behind by her pencil so long ago still stained my fingertips. In the middle of the page, done by what I assumed was an eraser trying to remove the forest from the notebook, stood a gaunt figure towering over the trees. I closed the notebooks and set them back in the box, and sealed them once again. I turned on every light in the house, first the entire ground floor, before making my way to the upstairs. I wanted to snuff out every single dark corner of this home to chase away a fear I refused to acknowledge. I shifted through the keychain in my pocket, entered every room, and turned on every light until I reached the locked door at the end of the hallway. I had one key left, one with her name written on the small tag that clung to it, Gwen. 2 times the keys fell out of my hands until I finally got them into the lock. It didn't click like the rest of the doors, but instead the lock turned with a rusted and sticky scrape. I thought Denise was joking when she said she had left my wife's room the same as the day she left and never opened it, but I realize now that she was telling the truth. I coughed hard as I pushed on the door. It took an agonizing amount of force to open, and as it did, it pushed something across the floor, sending dust from on top of the doorframe down on my head. My hand reached for where the light switch should be, but couldn't find anything. I opened the door wider so that the light from the hallway could spill into the room enough for me to see. Her desk was stacked with at least 100 of the same leather-bound notebooks she had in her box, the strap barely holding them close as they were stuffed with extra sheets of paper. Scattered across the ground were even more of them, their pages ripped out. Moonlight tried to enter the room through the window, but was forced back by something covering the glass. I took out my phone to shine its light across the walls to see where the ripped pages went. Across every surface possible were drawings of the woods. Growing up, my grandmother had one strict rule at the dinner table: always leave one bite on your plate. It didn't matter if it was rice, soup, or even a single piece of bread. No meat was ever to be finished completely. I asked her why. Once, when I was about 8, she just shook her head, her wrinkled fingers tightening around her spoon. You must always leave something behind, or he'll think you're inviting him in. I pressed her for more, but she refused to explain. The way her voice wavered, the way her eyes darted toward the darkened windows of our small home, it was enough to shut me up. I assumed he was just some folklore monster, like the Aswang, something made up to scare kids into obedience. But even my parents obeyed the rule. My father, who never believed in ghost stories, always made sure to leave one last bite. So I obeyed too. That was years ago. I live alone now, in a small apartment in the city, far from the quiet countryside where I grew up. Life gets busy, old habits fade. Last week, I had a long day at work and came home exhausted. I microwaved some leftover chicken and rice, then plopped onto my couch to eat in front of the TV. I was so distracted that I didn't even realize I had cleared my plate. At that moment, something shifted. It was subtle, just a strange crawling sensation down my spine. Not fear exactly, but wrongness, like an unseen weight pressing against my shoulders. I laughed at myself. I was being ridiculous. I put my plate in the sink, brushed my teeth, and went to bed. 3:12 a.m. A sound woke me, soft at first, then growing louder, silverware clinking against porcelain. My stomach tightened. My apartment was silent otherwise. The sound was coming from the kitchen. My breath hitched as I sat up. I told myself it was nothing. The sink settling, my mind playing tricks, but something deep inside me knew better. I climbed out of bed, stepping carefully over the creaky floorboards. The apartment was cold, much colder than it should have been. I reached the kitchen doorway and peered inside. The air left my lungs. My plate was on the counter, the same one I had emptied hours ago, and sitting in the very center was a single bite of food. I hadn't put it there. A chill ran down my spine. I turned to check the front door, but it was still locked. The windows, too. My apartment was empty, or so I thought. Then I heard it. The sound of chewing, wet smacking, hungry, and breathing. Hot, damp breath brushed the back of my neck. I turned so fast I nearly tripped, but there was nothing behind me. The light flickered, the air grew thick, suffocating. The smell hit me next, rotting meat. And then a voice, low whispering, right beside my ear. You forgot my share. My entire body locked up. The room around me warped. No, not the room, the air itself. The shadows in the corners seemed deeper now, stretching toward me like grasping fingers, and then pressure. A deep, sickening weight pressed into my stomach. I gasped, my hands flying to my abdomen. Fingers, long, yellowed, jagged. They weren't cutting, they were pulling. Something warm and wet spilled down my legs. I choked, my vision tilting, my body convulsing. The fingers inside me twisted, yanking something loose, something important. I collapsed, my head striking the floor, the world blurred, swimming in and out of focus. My breaths came in ragged, wheezing gasps. I tried to move, but the fingers still held me, caressing, exploring, taking. Through my fading vision, I saw it. A shape impossibly tall, its limbs too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Its eyes, black voids, hollow and dripping, stared down at me. It smiled, and then darkness. I woke up in my bed. Sunlight streamed through my window. My heart pounded, my body drenched in sweat. I sat up too fast, nearly throwing up from the nausea. My hands flew to my stomach. No blood, no wounds. Just a dream. Just a horrible, horrible dream. I let out a shaky breath and swung my legs over the bed. My body felt wrong, weak, empty, like something inside me was missing. I forced myself to stand and walked to the kitchen. Maybe some water would help. Maybe. I froze. My plate was still on the counter, and on it, sitting neatly in the center, a single bite of food. The apartment filled with a sound, a horrible wet chuckle, and behind me a whisper so close I felt the breath in my ear. You should have left me more. June 12th. I found the note while unpacking boxes in my new apartment. A floorboard near the bedroom closet was loose, and when I lifted it, there it was, a yellowed scrap of paper with handwriting so frantic the pen had torn through in places. If you hear crying from the walls, do not investigate. It's not a child. It remembers faces. I laughed. Some goth kid's idea of a joke, I figured. I crumpled it up and threw it away. Big mistake. June 17th. The first time I heard it, I thought I was dreaming. 3:07 a.m. The exact same time every night. I'd learn later a child's sob, muffled but unmistakable, coming from inside the west wall. Not the pipes, I checked. Not a neighbor, the walls are solid concrete, just this weeping that made my ribs ache with how real it sounded. I pressed my ear to the wall, the crying stopped. Then, so close, it made my skin crawl.
I see you too.
I barely slept after that. June 19th. I confronted the super today. Kids in the building? I asked casually. He stiffened. No, why? When I described the crying, his coffee cup rattled in its saucer. That unit was empty since Miss Lasky, he muttered. She kept complaining about noises before she transferred. What happened to her? He just tapped his temple and walked away. Transferred, right. June 22nd. The crying is getting louder, closer. Last night, it didn't come from the wall. It came from just behind my headboard. I lay frozen as tiny fingernails scratched the plaster, inches from my skull. Something whispered.
You looked. Now I know your face.
I bolted upright. The room was empty. My breath came in ragged gasps. I told myself I imagined it. I didn't sleep after that. June 24th. I pried up the floorboard today. The note wasn't alone. Beneath it lay a Polaroid of a smiling woman, Miss Lasky, standing in the same bedroom. Someone had scratched out her eyes with what looked like a child's fingernails. The back read, "It takes the eyes first." That night, I slept with the lights on. It didn't help. June 25th. I did some digging. No reports of a Miss Lasky and missing persons. No police records tied to my address. It's like she never existed, but I know she did. I found something else too. A news article, 1998. An apartment fire. A little girl trapped behind a wall, wedged inside an old dumbwaiter shaft. The fire department found her too late. The article didn't say how she got there, but it did say this. She was found with her hands over her eyes. June 27th, 3:07 a.m. The crying came again. I couldn't take it anymore. "What do you want?" I whispered. The response wasn't in the wall. It was right behind me, in a voice like wet paper tearing.
Your eyes work better than hers did.
I spun around, nothing. The room was empty, but the air felt thick, charged, wrong. The closet door creaked open by itself. I ran. June 28th. I'm writing this from a motel. The crying followed me here. It's 2:56 a.m. In 11 minutes, I'll hear it again. I turned the TV up loud to drown out the sound. I triple-checked the locks, but I know that won't stop it. I keep seeing things in the motel mirror, dark shapes in the corners, eyes missing from my reflection. I don't know what it wants, but I think I understand now. It doesn't need the apartment, it needs someone to see it. I just hope it doesn't remember what I look like.